competitive about a select number of video games. I'm competitive about anything. You know, I hate losing more than I like winning, which gives you a little insight on where I'm coming from. Like I always say, if you're not competing, then why did you get up this morning?
It's been a while since I uploaded with a song analysis, but I am finally back, ready to dive properly into Breach. War is over, and what better way to start that streak than by looking into our first non-single, and arguably most catchy song on the album, RAWFEAR. Because in true Pilots fashion, this one looks simple on the surface, is actually more complicated, and this is all wrapped up with a neat bow in an upbeat melody. Truly, my work never ends. Before I get into this video, I'd just like to give my usual disclaimer that this is my own interpretation of the lyrics. I am not claiming this is the only or correct one, and highly encourage you to post your own ideas in the comments below. Now, I know I just said that RAWFEAR was a complicated song, and it is, but not because it is difficult to decipher like the abstract Midwest Indigo or the metaphor-heavy Backslide, nor because the surface-level interpretation is intentionally deceptive to hide the true message underneath, like City Walls or Lavish. RAWFEAR is actually very simple in both analysis and in concept. It's not too abstract in its ideas or heavily layered in double meanings and misdirection, and on a brief glance, it's very easy to tell what the song is about without having to do too much work to get there. All you have to do is quite literally read the title of the song. The complicated part for RAWFEAR is that the meaning isn't simple. It isn't simply just a song about experiencing fear. It goes far more into depth with its exploration of the concept of fear and Tyler's own perspective of it. RAWFEAR, firstly, exposes the consistent power and presence fear has over and in Tyler's life. This is probably the simplest part of the lyrics to understand and analyze. In fact, it's apparent from the very first lyric of the song, which is basically jam-packed with things to analyze.
The first word being RAWFEAR, for example, showcases a level of power in and of itself. After all, the first word of any piece of literature can set the tone or style to the audience. Making RAWFEAR the first word gives it that power and influence not only over the lyrics, but also over the audience, thus depicting the power in general that fear has in Tyler's eyes. It is capable of controlling his lyrics as well as our perspective. It has power over us all.
Secondly, Tyler states that RAWFEAR moves him. To move something can refer to simply physically shifting something, or emotionally swaying someone, which suggests that it has some physical or mental control over him, as it is capable of influencing or forcing behaviours and actions out of him, thus illustrating not only that fear has jurisdiction over Tyler, but also power. Third, RAWFEAR as a word provides some interesting ideas as well. The capitalization of the entire word makes it look and seem loud, as if it's being screamed, which emphasizes the presence of fear in the lyrics, as screaming is often a response to intense fear. Moreover, capitalization not only makes the phrase important by elevating it to a proper noun, which is typically used for important concepts such as names or places, but the whole phrase being capitalized draws the listener's attention to it. When looking at the lyrics, the listener will always focus and be drawn to the phrase RAWFEAR due to its capitalization, and it's a difficult thing to ignore as it's the only word in the lyrics that does this. This concept of the unique visual design of RAWFEAR in the lyrics, drawing your attention to it constantly, mimics what fear feels like in reality. How, once we are aware of it, we often focus on it and become trapped by it. This further emphasizes the power of fear, as not only do the lyrics expose how Tyler perceives fear to function in his life, how it steals his attention and leaves him unable to focus on much else, but the fact that the visual design of the lyrics is what conveys this information almost presents Fear as having control over the lyrics of the song and the audience as a whole. It rips just that bit more control from Tyler and us, as lyrics are an artist's way of communicating with the listener, and instead our attention is partially stolen by the visual design of Raw Fear. It's a really cool metatextual way of conveying how powerful fear is. Finally, the adjective raw can mean something painful or vulnerable. This further accentuates the power and strength of fear, as not only does it suggest that fear is painful, that it causes him harm, but that it leaves Tyler feeling vulnerable. It is able to break down his composure and strip away his defenses. The next set of lyrics that illustrate the power of Raw Fear are those in the first verse. Calling his fears regulars, for example, illustrates that his fears have a constant presence in his life. They aren't something he has managed to overpower or permanently escape from despite growing, as a regular is something that is there quite often. This is followed by, wait, who's the new kid? The interruption of Tyler's flow of speech with wait and a question suggests shock, that this new kid, this new fear, is not something Tyler expected. This presents fear as unpredictable, but also powerful enough that it can materialize unnoticed and suddenly. This also tells us that even as Tyler has grown, new fears are constantly appearing in his life, and that he's unable to prevent or mitigate against them. This further emphasis on its consistent presence in his life and this inability to defend against it continues to showcase how powerful fear is. The first verse then ends on, "You know what kills me, not getting stronger," a reference and deviation of the common idiom, "what doesn't kill you makes you stronger." Typically, this is an idiom that means that we become stronger after facing challenges that do not defeat us. This deviation suggests that Tyler's fears constantly challenge him and succeed in besting him. He doesn't feel as though he is growing immune to them at all. In a way, this reminds me of the lyrics of Backslide, of "what happened to what I brushed under the rug used to be champion of a world you can't see," of Tyler's fears and insecurities growing in strength and multiplying, leaving him blindsided and a little helpless. It's also important to note that the use of the verb kill gives us some further connotations regarding fear's power over Tyler. Kill is a harsh and violent verb which stops something permanently by ending it. This suggests that fear not only hurts him or makes him feel defeated, but that his fears are powerful enough that this constant knocking down without growth may cause him to give up in fighting them completely. Moving on to the chorus, Tyler compares Raw Fear to the sound of empty Uzis, an Uzi being slang for a military submachine gun capable of rapid fire in close combat. And it being empty suggests that the sound being fired is blanks rather than actual bullets. Not only that, but guns, as weapons in general, are known for their danger due to their capability to cause fatal harm or death with ease. By comparing fear to the sound of empty blanks being fired from such a dangerous weapon known for rapid fire, Tyler is implying that fear is quick and overwhelming, something that always makes you feel apprehensive or on edge as you await for what you fear to finally hit you. But it never does. Finally, there are a few things of note in the bridge. Tyler stating fear is a poisonous progression highlights how fatal fear can be, as poisons can cause harm or death, and that it only continues to grow alongside him, it progresses. This is affirmed with the repeated phrases of, "but you'll never ever get it, I'll never see the ending." There is no end or immunity to fear. It still remains within Tyler's life no matter what he does or how much he grows. In fact, the use of the adverb ever heavily emphasizes the permanence and consistency of fear. It is something that sticks with him, it grows with him, and it evolves with him. We also have a few techniques that illustrate this power or strength. Firstly, Raw Fear is personified in verse 2 with Tyler stating that the listener has met his fears, like one would do with people. Those fears are regulars in his life before referring to his new fears as the new kid. By giving an abstract concept human qualities or referring to it as if it were a human, it makes that concept seem more tangible, more real, and capable of influencing and controlling the world around it. Thus, the personification utilized here makes raw fear seem more powerful or in control. The semantic field is another technique utilized throughout the lyrics. There is an overall theme of suffering from harm or death with Uzis, which is a gun, nipping, kills, painful, and poisonous. And these are words that are often utilized in conjunction with lines or metaphors pertaining to fear. Therefore, we know this semantic field is meant to be about fear itself. Having the semantic field of death and harm be used to represent fear further illustrates just how strong fear is, given it has the capability of being fatal. And whilst not technically structural, the post-chorus utilizes a faster pace in instrumentation than the rest of the song. You can quite audibly hear it speed up.
Learning all that really matters is a slow and painful lesson.
This sudden, unusual increase in speed makes it feel as though things are slipping out of control, spiraling, thus showing the power of fear, both in its ability to remove control from you, but also again in its ability to control and manipulate the song. The lyrics then go on to suggest that his fears have been so intense or powerful at times that it has developed into feelings of anxiety. It has caused panic attacks. Going back to the visual design of the phrase raw fear for a second, the fact that the neologism is made up of two words merged together makes the words seem as if they are spoken quickly or without breath all at once, much like how speaking can become rushed and difficult during a panic attack. The other lyric that exposes this sense of anxiety is "I can't seem to sit still any longer," which alludes to feelings of restlessness common with anxiety. Linguistic and structural techniques convey the rest of this though. The overall structure of both the verse length and lines in verse 1 and the chorus are short, curt, and abrupt. This could again illustrate a difficulty in speaking due to anxiety making the prospect of speaking more overwhelming. This structure then develops in the bridge. The bridge itself is the largest verse out of the entire song by a mile, and the very beginning of the bridge also includes the lengthiest lines we have seen throughout the lyrics. This is also occasionally assisted by bits of enjambment to keep the lines flowing for longer. This change goes to the other end of the extreme, presenting Tyler as spiraling due to the uncontrolled nature of the structure combined with the faster pace sonically. He's speaking as much as he can as quickly as possible, almost as if he is running out of air thanks to a panic attack and cannot stop himself. The latter half of the bridge then shortens once again, and the lyrics become a mixture of lines from verse 1, although not a perfect copy, given that some lines from verse 1 are missing. This further emphasizes the idea of Tyler being short of breath thanks to a panic attack, as the shorter lines and imperfect repetition of verse 1 suggests lacking oxygen and thus being unable to speak properly. It also suggests panic, being unable to repeat and recall information perfectly. The bridge also utilizes the repetition of the sounds and o, which in themselves sound like quick, rapid inhales and exhales of air, almost as if Tyler is having a panic attack whilst singing. Meanwhile, the post-chorus features a prominent use of repetition, with never, never slowing down. Not only does the repetition of never come across as Tyler stuttering, as if struggling to breathe, but the repetition of the phrase never slowing down overall throughout the post-chorus illustrates a lack of focus due to panic, as if Tyler can only focus on this and nothing else. Finally, there is a heavy usage of sibilants throughout the lyrics as a whole, sibilants referring to the consistent emphasis on S or hissing sounds. This hissing is very reminiscent of air deflating or air loss, which could mimic a panic attack. You could also argue that the song implicitly showcases a few of Tyler's core fears, some being familiar fears previously brought up in former lyricism, whilst others are seemingly new, matching this idea that fear has evolved with Tyler as he grows, rather than fading away. Namely, it seems to showcase Tyler's fear of not being good enough. Within the lyrics overall, Tyler generally tries to downplay how much his fears affect him. This is quite obvious from the start of the first verse, wherein Tyler asks the listener if we know what scares him before cutting himself off. Nah, it's stupid. Him dismissing his fears as stupid, either because he finds them silly or because we already met his fears in earlier songs, therefore there's no need for introduction, suggests that he fears judgment from the listeners, hence why he refrains from talking about them or over-explaining. There's also quite a bit of informal language with Uzis, nah, kid, which presents Tyler as trying to be casual and calm when talking about his fears. This casual, composed vibe the lyrics try to create is completely oxymoronic to and contradicted by the abrupt structure for most of the song and fluctuations in pacing, which illustrate that panic and lack of control we discussed earlier when talking about anxiety and panic attacks. This contradiction not only exposes the chill constitution Tyler presents as being a lie, something which is actually confirmed within the lyrics, Tyler stating he could build a tower with the amount of times he was pretending, suggesting he covers up how he actually feels a lot. But the fact that he has to lie in and of itself tells us that he fears our judgment, hence why he pretends when talking to us within the lyrics. Meanwhile, there are also demonstrations of Tyler fearing not being strong enough or not being enough in his relationships with others. Even the use of kid is dismissive and downplays his fears. He's comparing his fears to something smaller, incapable, or immature, presenting himself as the opposite as if to compensate for not actually being so. In contrast, we have the lyrics "I wish her parents would stop yelling," which is an incredibly vague statement that never gets addressed again. As a result, it can be interpreted in various ways, but I'm going to argue that the her in this scenario is in reference to his kids. After all, RAWFEAR features the screams of Rosie and Junie, according to Tyler in interviews. It would seem fairly cohesive to include them in the lyrics. This means that the parents yelling is in reference to Tyler himself. It's an idea that suggests guilt and fears around parenthood, about being a good enough parent and providing a good enough childhood and environment for his kids. It isn't all negativity though. The lyrics also suggest that Tyler also believes that fear has a place in his life. It specifically provides two reasons for this. Fear is necessary for existence, it is entirely natural, and that fear inspires him. In psychology, fear is important in protecting us from harm and ensuring our survival. Ultimately, it protects us from danger by either preemptively making us avoid it, or by orchestrating responses that get us to safety. There are other psychological benefits as well, such as fear helping to build resilience, thus expanding our comfort zones, or pushing us to improve. This is why fear is necessary for our existence and entirely natural on a biological level. And the lyrics of RAWFEAR acknowledge this. The first piece of evidence is the adjective raw within the titular phrase RAWFEAR. Aside from meaning something painful or sensitive, raw can also refer to feelings that are difficult to control, but entirely natural. This can change the phrase RAWFEAR from referring to fear that is painful or causes vulnerabilities to fear that is completely natural regardless of intensity. Fear that is part of life. The rest of this discussion is continued in the bridge. Learning all that really matters is a slow and painful lesson. It's not pass or fail, but a poisonous progression. Try to microdose to immunity, but you'll never ever get it. Comparing fear to a slow and painful lesson makes it seem more natural and useful. A lesson teaches us knowledge that helps us in our own growth. And the process of learning is something we do both consciously and subconsciously every day. To learn, to be subjected to lessons, is a natural part of life. As aforementioned, fear can teach us what to avoid or teach us resilience, and so fear being a lesson that just so happens to be slow and painful emphasizes that it is a natural and necessary part of our growth as people. Furthermore, whilst calling it a poisonous progression initially has negative connotations as discussed earlier, poison will eventually work through your system and leave the body, regardless of the harm it causes before that point. Again, this presents fear as something that can be naturally worked through, rather than something to avoid. As for trying to microdose to immunity, microdosing is the process of administering therapeutic doses of drugs for the purposes of studying their effects, which again highlights this idea of being something that can be understood and naturally worked through when exposed to it. Ultimately, this part of the bridge translates to fear being something that cannot be fully eradicated or ended because it's a natural part of life. It is a lesson that teaches us, not something you can pass or fail at, as fear will always be teaching us because our fears grow and evolve with us the more we experience. You can try exposing yourself to fear, microdosing to immunity, but immunity to fear won't completely happen. You can only learn from fear and allow it to work through your system rather than trying to avoid or eradicate it entirely. In contrast, the chorus specifically seems to suggest that fear has its uses in inspiring Tyler in his life. Firstly, when he states that raw fear moves him, move can also mean to prompt actions, or to elicit certain emotions to a passionate degree. The chorus then goes on to state that life is just forever nipping heels, a lyric that suggests that life is chasing Tyler, closely following him, as to nip is to lightly bite something, and Tyler is being prompted to keep running from it so it doesn't manage to actually bite him. This is then followed by life is just forever gripping feels. Gripping meaning to hold onto something tightly, which seems to imply that life should be about holding onto our emotions and what we feel, that instead of demonizing fear, we should hold onto these feelings and appreciate them. Overall, combining an analysis on these lines separately, the chorus translates to something like this. Fear encourages Tyler to act. It prompts him to move. It inspires him to keep going, and this is what life is about. It's about being motivated by life nipping at your heels, by situations that scare you or fears about various aspects of existence, to keep moving, to compete with your fears, trying to outrun them rather than giving up and giving in. Life is about gripping onto these feels, holding onto fear to motivate you, whether that be in improving yourself or in simply staying alive. Because life isn't slowing down anytime soon. So allow fear to push you to keep going, to keep competing, to stay alive, rather than allow life to consume you. In conclusion, Raw Fear documents Tyler's struggles with his evolving fears as he grows, but it also showcases some appreciation for fear in his life, how raw fear is a double-sided coin, and how Tyler understands that it does have a purpose, from protecting and teaching him to inspiring him to keep moving and compete, to improve himself, to stay alive. And that is that for the Raw Fear analysis. It is so good to finally get back to doing song analyses again. I've missed doing it so much. The last time I did it was back in September, and then I had to stop because third year of university just kind of... It takes you places, man. That's all I've got to say. Hopefully the analysis and script for this one made sense. I partially worry about this because it's been a long time since I've done any lyric analysis, so I'm worried I'm a bit rusty at communicating and conveying that information. Not only that, but when it comes to analysis, Raw Fear wears its heart on its sleeve. It's a very obvious song. You know exactly what it's going to be about, as I said, from the first word, from the title of the song itself. I always find songs that are a bit more simpler or a bit more open like that to be a bit more difficult to analyze. That's just me personally. I like songs that are a bit more metaphorical, or they're a bit harder to grasp the meaning of just through a quick surface level glance, because it's just easier for me to say a lot more about it and communicate that. Raw Fear is basically the routines in the night of this album for me. But so either way, I hope I hope this was good enough. The other thing, because I'm going to enlist all of your help with this, because I really need to get this problem solved. Some of you may remember in my Vialism video, I talked about the trouble I had to go through to record that video. 2 of you in the comments recommended buying something called like a doohickey or a dongle. I think the language is different across the UK and the US. So I did that. I bought one for £4 off of Amazon, and it doesn't work that well. My microphone can connect to it, but the issue I've got is the quality isn't great. You can kind of hear like static in the background. So if anyone has any solutions to how I stop the dongle / doohickey doing that, or any microphones you can recommend that might be able to be plugged in through a USB-C adapter, I would be greatly appreciative. Anyway, wow, I've rambled long enough about my woes and miseries and insecurities, so I hope you enjoyed this video.
Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the garbage analysis.